it's Tanya. Glad to have you back in the garden today. It is a dreary, cold day here just outside of Chicago, zone 5B/6. And I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about some seeds that I'll be planting here very soon using the winter sowing method. And these are beautiful flowers that are all pink. So if pink is your jam for this coming gardening season, this is the video to watch. Now, most of these seeds I'll be talking about are somewhat frost hardy, which is really perfect for the winter sowing method, where we essentially plant the seeds outdoors using some type of clear or opaque jug and let nature take its course, really let these seeds go through that stratification or cold period and then germinate when it's ready. And this way the seeds are hardened off and they're ready to go, and I've got plenty of beautiful pink seedlings to work with. Now, most of the flowers I'll be talking about today are perfect for winter sowing, which, if you're not familiar with, is really ideal for frost hardy or perennial or cold tolerant plants that essentially need that cold stratification or cold period in order to germinate. Now, if you're wondering why all the pink flowers, well, pink is an obvious choice. There are many pink flowers that exist in the garden, and it's a gorgeous color, right, in the landscape. But I chose this color intentionally. Number one, pink exists on the opposite side of the color wheel than green, and green in the garden is our neutral. Just like white or beige is our neutral on walls or is a neutral in the wardrobe, green is the neutral in the garden. Now, on a color wheel, here's green and here's pink. It exists kind of right next to red. And so I want that contrast and I want that intentional dimension when I plant annuals and different flowers in the garden next to my green shrubs like boxwood or my emerald green arborvitae, for example. The second reason that I chose pink is that the type of pink I'll be talking about today is a cool pink. And in my garden, I have a lot of really warm yellow elements, including a very large fence that my neighbors installed. Now, it's a beautiful fence. I don't begrudge them installing this whatsoever, and it's gorgeous, right? It gives both of us privacy and it gives a great foundation. However, it is a very warm yellow shade, and I want to cool down the space. And in order to do that, I need to interject cool colors like a cool pink or a cool purple, which will balance the space and offer a lot more texture and kind of calmness to the space, which is the vibe I'm going for in my garden. Calm, beautiful, lush vibes. And the cooling pink does just that. And the final reason I want to talk about all these pink flowers is that right now my garden is fairly new. It's fairly young, and I have a lot of foundational shrubs in my garden. I've spent a lot of time planting hedges of emerald green arborvitae, shrubs, red twig dogwoods, all kinds of things, trees, birch, right? But I lack color, and this is where I want to really focus my efforts this year. I want to focus on beautiful color. I want to create gorgeous pink vistas, hues of pink, purple that I think are really catching to the eye and make the garden that much more inviting. So that is my goal for this year. And if that is your plan, then follow along and check out the seeds that I'm going to talk about. So the first seed I'm going to be talking about are cosmos. Cosmos are gorgeous. Here I've got the apricot lemonade and seashell variety from Baker Creek. Now, I've ordered from them before and they have a highly reliable germination rate. And the great thing about cosmos is these self-seed. So it may be that they come back for you the next year because the plant has simply dropped the seeds on the ground and use that cold stratification period over the winter and then come back the next year, even though this plant is technically not a perennial in my area. So it's fantastic. But I want to be a little bit more intentional about planting this plant this year, and this is the reason why. This is a gorgeous stunner, and you will get blooms within the first year, and it just offers such dimension in the garden. Number one, they grow very tall, so they can grow up to 3 to 4 feet tall. Staking is sometimes needed, and I'd recommend that. I have had to stake them in my garden, but just their size alone, they make a big impact, especially when planted in drifts. So I really recommend doing that. My goal, I think, for this is to plant it along my garden fence, which is white, and I think the pink and cream color will be really nice contrast for this area. Now, these are a full sun plant, so you just want to keep that in mind when planting. You want to make sure that it meets the light requirements and gets the light it needs in order to produce beautiful blooms and plentiful blooms. There are many blooms per stalk on this, or per stem rather, on this plant, and it just provides such gorgeous very delicate blooms. The second plant I want to talk about is Yaro. I also have Ceres Queen from Baker Creek, and this has performed beautifully for me. I started this from seed several years ago using the winter sowing method, and I want to start it again because I want to have more of this plant. This plant is gorgeous. Not only does it grow very quickly, you will get blooms within the first year, but it is a perennial, so it will survive in my zone. In fact, I think it's hardy down to a zone 3, so very cold tolerant. Number 2, it can be divided very easily. So I can divide my existing plant and plant plugs elsewhere in my garden. Now you might be wondering, well, why are you doing the winter sowing method then? Well, here's why. I actually prefer the size of my existing plant right now, and it could grow back, but I really just want to try this from seed again because it's something fun to do as well. And this way I have brand new seedlings and they will grow huge and lush, and I'll have quantities of them. The third thing I really like about this plant is that in my area, it typically retains some of its green throughout the season. So it kind of acts like an evergreen, which is just amazing considering we drop well into the teens and single digits, sometimes even lower in my area. We have very cold wind chills at times in the winter, and that can be very stressful for plants. But this Yarrow is a powerhouse, and if you have this in your garden, you know what I'm talking about. I highly recommend this. What I love about the Ceres Queen is that it has very soft pastel blooms in varying shades of pinks and purples. So it offers a lot of dimension and a lot of movement, and it sends up the stalks of blooms at about 2 feet high. So the plant has a lot of dimension and texture and height and makes an impact in the garden. And that is my goal for this year. The third plant I want to talk about is Verbascum mullein. Now, many of you might be familiar with Verbascum mullein as a yellow flower, but the one I have here is Shades of Summer. And this one is from Botanical Interests, I believe it is, and it is a pink and purple variety that is really cool, subtle pastel shades. I've grown this in my garden in the past, and the great thing about this is that it is a perennial, so very cold tolerant and really ideal for winter sowing. Now, it will grow 2 to 4 feet tall. My plan for this is to, again, plant it against my white picket fence. I think that will look gorgeous, especially complemented against the white backdrop. I can always use that as a stake as well. So if the plant needs support, I can simply anchor it, and that is an ideal location. This blooms spring through fall, so my goal is to have as much soft color and texture as I possibly can. Next, we have Bachelor Buttons. This is a classic cottage garden vibe plant. This is an annual in my area, and the variety I have is Bachelor Buttons Tall Double Mixed Colors. This will grow around 12 to 14 inches tall and produces a cluster of mixed bloom colors in purple, blues, pinks, violets. So really gorgeous, cool toned flowers that I'm looking for. My goal is to plant this on the front border of my garden beds. That way I have cute little flowers in a hedge that are planted along the edge. And I think that will really just soften the look, especially when planted next to some of my boxwoods or baby emerald green arborvitaes that need some layering and texture. These are also full sun flowers, so just keep that in mind when planting it. In fact, I just want to add that all of the flowers I'm talking about today are full sun. So none of these are shade or part shade flowers. They will require a minimum of 6+ hours a day in order to achieve the fullness and the blooms that we're really all after when planting our flowers. Next, we have asters. These are very similar to Bachelor Buttons in their shape and look, but they are bigger. The blooms can be about 4 inches wide in diameter, and this cluster of colors are white, pink, lavender, purple, really a gorgeous hue of cool toned purples and pinks that I'm going for. These grow about 24 inches in height, so a perfect mid-layer plant when you're thinking about your gardening structure and the garden layout and design. Asters bloom in late summer and fall, so keep that in mind when you're planting your garden. You may want to plant other spring blooming plants next to it or to complement it, or plant it next to evergreens. That way you always maintain some type of interest in the garden and in your garden bed area. Next, we have hollyhocks. Now, these are a classic cottage grandmother's favorite flower. Hollyhocks are beautiful. They can grow anywhere between 4 and 6 feet tall and are biennial. So this means that they bloom the second year. The mother plant dies and the plant reseeds itself. So they are technically perennials, but biennials, which basically means that they bloom every other year. They bloom in tight clusters on a very tall, sturdy stem and can grow really gorgeously along hedges or walkways and just offer such a beautiful cottagey vibe. Now, this one here is heirloom. I've had this one for a while, and the blooms are a gorgeous, soft pink, the cool tone variety that I'm looking for. So my goal again is to really create this beautiful vibe in my garden that has a lot of lush colors, and hollyhocks will do just that. So one thing that the packet does say is that hollyhocks are short-lived perennials, which I think basically is another way of saying biennials. It does advise to replant the seeds every 2 to 3 years to continue that bloom. And that's exactly what has happened to me. My hollyhocks have since died. They have not continued to multiply. So that's why I'm really incorporating this into my garden this year. Next, I want to talk about Baptisia or wild indigo. I have this in a Ziploc baggie. These are seeds I collected from my own plant, and it does have seeds in there as well as some chaff from the seed. So I'm going to be winter sowing these, and they do very well. Baptisia are very hardy and are perennial in my area, again, zone 5B/6, and they bloom a gorgeous indigo blue in June, and these are absolute stunner plants. They will continue to multiply and spread and grow bigger and bigger year after year if you let the plant do its thing. They are very drought hardy, and the reason they are very drought hardy is that they have something called a taproot. And a taproot is essentially one long single root that goes very deep down into the earth and gets any water resources it can. And so it can survive with hardly any water supplementation whatsoever. In fact, my own Baptisia is not on any water supplementation at all, and it thrives beautifully. It has continued to grow year after year after year in a very hot, sunny, dry location next to my shed. Now, there are many different colors of Baptisia. There's yellow, white, but the type that I have is Baptisia australis, and that is the indigo or deep blue purple variety. And that is the color I'm going for. So just keep that in mind when you're purchasing or looking at seed packets. Know that there are many different types and colors of Baptisia. And I have one bonus seed that is not pink, but I definitely want to incorporate into my garden because I think it complements the pink so beautifully. And that is Bells of Ireland. Bells of Ireland are a gorgeous cut flower and just very unusual in the garden. These grow a classic green shade and they just offer such beautiful structure. They have tiny white flowers and bell-shaped blooms that are just breathtaking, and I thought that would complement very nicely with the pink. These are frost hardy, so that's why I will be winter sowing them. Again, all of these plants can be winter sowed, but this is not just the only ones. You can winter sow many, many other plants, but these are the ones I'll be doing right now. I have another order of seeds coming in from Johnny's Seeds, which I'm really excited to share with you all, and I'll be winter sowing those as well. Now, you might be wondering, well, why can't I just start these seeds inside right now? Well, here's a few things. If I start the seeds right now, the seeds will be inside too long, and it's highly likely that they will become leggy because I cannot provide them with the exact light requirements that they need. So leggy means that the plant will begin to reach for light, and it will form a very long stem and really just doesn't look very good. It's not in the ideal light requirements that the plant needs. That's why I've learned my lesson never to plant my seeds too early. The great thing about winter sowing is that the seed knows itself when to wake up, and it really lets nature do its work for it. So that way I don't have to worry about sticking to a date schedule or sticking to a certain time frame. The seed kind of does the work on its own. And it allows me to plant that many more seeds indoors when the time comes, typically anywhere between 12 and 6 weeks before my last frost date. If you are winter sowing this year, I'd love to hear about it. Drop in the comments below. Tell me what you plan on winter sowing. I'll be doing a video here shortly where I show all the seeds I'll be winter sowing. It's been a rainy couple of days, so I haven't been able to get outside, but I'm very anxious to do it. That is it for today. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.